now. Hello, everybody. I am here today with John O'Loughlin, who is a man of great accomplishments, and it's a life project of truth-seeking and unraveling mysteries and bringing to us a way of a very personal path to understanding and dealing with what is ailing us. I want to introduce this with just a thought, and that is that the civilization is threatened right now by the project for escalating the war against Russia by the people in control of our government's policy. And this can lead to the death of civilization. And so if we survive this crisis, as I think we will, we are going to have to break the people who have threatened our human race in this way, and restore the sovereignty of the United States. So John O'Loughlin has written a book called McDuff Lives. Do you have a copy of that that you could show? The Life and Untimely Death of Thomas F. O'Loughlin, Jr. That's his father. And this is what the blurb says. Tom O'Loughlin was a scholar athlete at Harvard, a U.S. Navy lieutenant on General MacArthur's flagship in World War II, a top FBI agent for J. Edgar Hoover, and counterinsurgency planner for the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Vietnam War. He was called Kennedy's man to smash the CIA by author George Webb. And I'm not going to go any further into that at this point. So, John, you have written a loving and explosive biography of your father. Can you say a little bit about, just to introduce this, when did you come to know different parts of this? I don't want you to go into the whole story right away, but how did you become aware of what your father was doing and what was happening with him?
Thank you, Tony, and may I say it's a pleasure and an honor to be interviewed by you, one of our greatest historians, and I'm thrilled to answer your questions as best as I can.
Thank you, John.
It's important to understand that my dad died when I was 18 years old, in my just completed my first year of college, and my path from there was to keep my shoulder to the wheel and my feet moving and keep building some type of a life for myself. But there were a lot of questions about my dad's early death from cancer that my grandfather carried with him. And ultimately, I started wondering, how was it that his death came so quickly and so mysteriously, and that nobody from his work life came to us and explained what was going on. And he was at that time working directly for the Joint Chiefs of Staff in an office called SACSA, or the Special.
Now, is this at the time of his death in 1971? Is that what you're talking about now?
Yeah, that's right. He died on June 6, 1971. And like many people, I find dates significant. But he did die after 10 years of service at SACSA, which was created by President Kennedy to take the special operations function away from the CIA in response largely to the Bay of Pigs, which had failed in 1961. So this office was created in 62. Now, I knew that he worked for the Pentagon when I was a kid, but we didn't know any more than that. We knew that he was fairly proud of the fact that he was the highest ranking civilian that worked at the Pentagon at that time, and he got to park his car with the bird colonels. And so that gave him a...
Let me interrupt you just for a second, John.
Yeah.
You're talking about a new sort of sub-agency. You call it SACSA, SACHSA, I think.
No, SACSA.
SACSA.
Right.
And this was an agency that was put into the Pentagon, into our Defense Department by President Kennedy to take over the special operations that had been run by the CIA, which were not under the control of our government while the CIA was doing it. And to put those operations and the files, as you report, under the control of constitutional agencies in the military, but with the under the authority of the elected president of the United States. I have to say that when somebody serves our government or an agency or department, we don't normally go into a philosophical inquiry about whether that department or that agency is actually in a constitutional relationship to our government and our people and our whole way of life. So this is something that Kennedy did at a certain point in his presidency, and your father then was put into this agency. Go ahead now. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, to get back to your original question, while I knew that my dad did secret work at the Pentagon and had done secret work at the FBI before that and had been on the USS Nashville and somehow associated with General MacArthur just from my childhood, I did not have any idea of the details that I ultimately dug up. And to answer your question, how I finally started making the connection, it was with Fletcher Prouty's book, The Secret Team. Because in his book, The Secret Team, he is the first person to detail exactly what SACSA was, how it came to be, and then to explain how the differences in doctrine that we are experiencing now in spades were beginning to happen as things were taken away from like the regular services to take care of problems and given to special ops operatives like, SEALs and everything else, as opposed to, confronting problems directly on with diplomacy. And so that book, The Secret Team, just fired my interest. I said, there are keys here that I can follow. And to the best of my knowledge, I have followed everything I could to put together the book I ultimately wrote 6 or 7 years later in 2021.
Was Fletcher Prouty, Colonel Prouty, associated with SACSA, the agency your father was in?
Yes, he was indeed. Indeed, he was. It's you can see it on the table of organization and employees, the TOE for SACSA. You can see that. Well, there is a chart there in which Colonel Prouty is fairly high up, and my dad's office, which was called Special Plans. And Special Plans was led by a Navy captain. And my dad worked for that Navy captain. And the idea, because the reason that I think that my dad was selected was because he was a top FBI agent for Hoover. And the idea was to bring in people from other agencies, especially all the military, but also the FBI, because Hoover had, his cards to play as well. So it was necessary, I guess, or maybe even a good idea to bring in somebody with the FBI. And these guys were often, as I've learned later, called double-hatted. So, I might be an Air Force general, but also be a director of some part of the CIA. And these guys were the ones that the infiltrators were the CIA guys that were pushed in more and more. And of course, once Kennedy was killed, then it all was just it devolved into a branch of the CIA again.
All right, I want to just interpose quickly the relevant background, as you point out in your book, to Allen Dulles and his associates, his partners at the Sullivan and Cromwell law firm, and other people that are really unknown to us, but they're in the British government, they're in other aspects of international affairs. And as a lawyer with the highest connections in the private banking and other worlds, Dulles and his brother John Foster, his partner, represented a clique. It's powerful and so forth. It represents immense financial power, but it is a clique. It has a point of view, and it is not the United States. His life was along with his whole set of friends, was dedicated to serving this clique that was in historic competition with and against the U.S. government from the very beginning of the government. And of course, they don't go that far back, but it's a tradition, and that tradition is to vie for control over American affairs by this private clique. And really, that's what we're dealing with. Those are people who gain control over agencies of our government, particularly the CIA, and then you have a whole set of other ones later. But that's who you're talking about, who have done the things that are in your book. So tell me a little bit about your father's origins and his background. How did he get into government service? Who was he?
Well, my dad was a third generation Irish American. The O'Loughlin family was came over during the famine and later than the famine. And our part of the O'Loughlins ended up in first in Willimantic, Connecticut, and then, of course, in Hartford, where my dad grew up. My dad was a child of divorce, so he grew up in his paternal grandparents' house, a house on New Britain Avenue in Hartford, Connecticut. And in some mystical way, he was snatched out of public school and put into Loomis Academy in the ninth grade and became a member of the class of 1938 of Loomis. And those that don't know, Loomis is one of those Andover and Groton type of New England prep schools to which the Rockefellers and the Bundys and the high class, the ones you're talking about, in other words, and their kids go to get trained.
So somebody in that class recognized your father's talent at a young age and boosted him into this private school to take advantage of this talent, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. And then his talent was recognized with a full scholarship to Harvard, where he played football and was in the class of 1942, which of course is when the war got going. So he immediately joined the Naval ROTC and became a midshipman at the Columbia School for Naval Reserve Officers, and he graduated from that February 1943 and shipped out in June onto the USS Nashville, which then goes on to have an amazing career as the flagship of MacArthur's island hopping campaign. And my father served on that ship for 22 months to the end of the
Wow.
war.
Yeah. So then after this epic making journey with under this Douglas MacArthur, what happened after the war?
Well, after the war, my dad's family of origin put a lot of pressure on him not to join the regular Navy, but to come home and to go to law school and follow a plan that I think had been laid out for him. Because I think it's a little bit more than just somebody recognizing his talent and wanting to promote somebody in the kid's best interest. I think there is a lot of talk right now about this phenomenon called grooming, and I think that my dad's was subject to that in the sense that they brought him up through these incredible, really WASP institutions. He was an Irish American kid that. I mean, there's no other Irish names in the yearbook for Loomis for 1938. This is really an extraordinary event.
Yeah.
But various of his family, I'm sure, were pressuring him to come home and follow whatever the path that the powers that be wanted him to do, and that was, of course, to go to law school and to support the family's entry into the upper class, the idea of an upwardly mobile Irish family moving into the elites, moving into the, to become really fully American. I mean, to have all of the great rights that were promised to their ancestors,
Right.
and so they did whatever they had to do, I think, and for some reason, I came to believe that it seemed like an obligation, a family obligation, to send this kid along the path that was being laid out for him. And one person that I think should be considered in this, if I may say so, is Richard M. Bissell Sr. I think Richard M. Bissell Jr. is a very well-known character
That's the
in our
CIA
history. CIA guy that was in charge of the Bay of Pigs, and the Bay of Pigs failed. And then my dad is put into SACSA to try to take these operations away from CIA. Well, my dad grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, the home of the Bissell family. Richard M. Bissell Sr. owned and grew up and lived in the Mark Twain house. And in that house, while my dad was at Loomis, he had a classmate named George P. Schultz, who lived in the Bissell house while he was going to Loomis. And so you see that my dad was mentored by his uncle, and his uncle, John, worked for the Hartford Fire Insurance Company, which was one of the hugest and most historically important insurance companies in the country. And the president of that was Richard M. Bissell Sr. So the Bissell connection to Allen Dulles, of course, is just, tight as can be. And then the history of Sullivan and Cromwell is just fascinating.
That's the
There's a
law
great book,
firm of the Dulles brothers, going
right?
back to the 19th century, where they were among the imperial managers in Latin America and so forth, against the American nationalist idea of sovereignty, all the way back to the 19th century. But this stuff in Connecticut is the financial establishment there, the old Tory establishment, but these are powerful men in their own right, whatever their views are about politics or strategy. This is a financial interest that is really a global interest. But go ahead now. So your father at Loomis was involved with this set of men who were maybe grooming him and have expectations. So go ahead.
So he did go home to Hartford. He went to the University of Connecticut, graduated from law school. But then I am sure it was just his decision to get the heck away from that life that was programmed for him. And he joined the FBI. And he joined the FBI, I think, in 1949 when he graduated from law school. And then he did a lot of secret work for the FBI. Growing up as a little kid, while my dad was an FBI agent, the things that we noticed were sometimes he would be incognito. He'd have this old bum-like outfit with a messed up stocking cap and everything that he would sometimes come in because he was doing stakeouts. He was working counterintelligence against the Russians that had safe houses in D.C. and this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know the details, but other people have written about what was going on.
He's going up against the KGB for J. Edgar Hoover.
That's right. Well, anyway, that was his life until he was drafted to become the planner, the person who signs off on all of the plans, and to have custody of the historic special operation plans from all the branches of our military as well as our intelligence up.
It's 61.
Yeah, 62. Yeah,
62. Okay.
Yeah, he got the appointment in February, I think, of 62. Hoover signed off on it. I have a letter from Hoover saying that he wished him well. And then immediately comes down with hepatitis, infectious hepatitis, which put him in the hospital and kept him bedridden for 4 to 6 weeks during March, April period of 1962, when he should have been reporting to work.
Before you get to this, now this is a crucial moment here. When he was drafted under President Kennedy to go into this special unit that's taking control of special operations away from the CIA, did he become aware at that point of maybe not everything that was happening, but what they were doing, but that there was a whole current of activities by the CIA and others that was counter to the interests and really law of the United States? Did he become aware of that at that point when he got in there? Because otherwise, go ahead.
You know, the first point in which I think he starts to get educated is probably when he was serving in MacArthur's Navy, because the people under MacArthur would have been saying, look at the other guys, they did not want OSS.
Right, they were counter to this Eastern establishment.
Absolutely, they all were. And then of course Hoover's
in his own way.
In his own, well, okay, he has his own establishment. He has his own establishment, right?
That's right. That's true.
But they are taking it away from him, and that's what's going on. And I think he would be aware of all of the FBI agents during his tenure that were getting seduced into the CIA, or into these private operations like you see with Bannister.
So when he's put into this powerful position of being in charge of the files of this, and the special operations, then he suddenly gets sick.
Yeah.
And so tell me something about that. Tell us a little bit about this thing called the CIA's Health Alteration Committee, and what you have to say about for his first sickness, this liver problem.
My mother told us, and this is in 1962. So I am at that time maybe 9 years old. My sisters are younger, so our knowledge and recollection is not very, very strong. But what my mother said to me, and I do remember because it was very striking words, was that Daddy came home and told me that he was going to get sick because he had consumed tainted shellfish.
Yeah.
Consumed tainted shellfish. And that's all he would say. And that's what Mama told us. That's all he's going to say. So he was in the hospital for a while, and then he was kind of shut up in his bedroom for a while. I don't know if I was told that he was yellow, or I just have this imagination that I saw him, really, really yellow.
Jaundice.
But yeah, but the idea is that he was quite sick, but he recovered and went on to have great reviews. He's, according to his personnel records, he was always getting awarded for outstanding performance, and it appeared to be that they liked him. Now, as far as the beginning of the Saxa career, these are handpicked people from probably from Bobby Kennedy as well as from John F. Kennedy, in my opinion. And so they are like General Krulak is the first Saxa. General Victor Krulak, the senior General
That's
Krulak,
Krulak.
right, and a very important man, both in JFK's story as well as to understand my dad's story, because this guy was a very important thinker. He wasn't the inventor of the Higgins boat, which is a very, very important vehicle during World War II to where you see those landing crafts that open in the front. Well, he didn't invent the boat, but he invented the opening flap that flaps open onto the beach.
Okay.
So this is, this is General Victor Krulak, and he was my dad's first boss, senior above people like Prouty. But, my dad is a lower level guy in Saxa. And General Krulak was like a Marine. He was like when they said, okay, we want you to do counterinsurgency. He's like, well, no problem. We're Marines. We already do that. We know how to do that stuff. And now I read him saying things like that. So this is just my putting together various recollections of my understanding of how this went down. But Krulak was only there for a short time. Then he was posted to Vietnam and became I think he was a head of 3 Corps or something in Vietnam for doing real war fighting over there. But the Saxas after him, and the ones they call it the Saxa, was the leader of the Saxa organization, were all military guys. And every time I look a little deep into them, I see a CIA connection. So what I'm saying is the organization started out as like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to bring the special ops under President Kennedy's control, and we're the team that's going to do this. But then it gets once they get Kennedy assassinated 2 years later, then my dad's still working there, but the CIA is gradually taking it over. And with some exceptions, like my dad and probably some other people that were still fighting against this thing in their own way.
So did your father at some point get deployed on a mission to Southeast Asia for intelligence? Go ahead, tell us about that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I know that he was an aide to Maxwell Taylor, according to my grandfather. He said this is hearsay, but I believe what my grandfather said. So when Taylor went on one of his trips, and I know that I went and picked up my dad at Dulles Airport one time when he came back from Southeast Asia, where he brought me a Vietnamese tie with different kinds of silk, the silk that was weaving like it'd be red this way and green. It was beautiful. But yeah, as far as what he did or where he was there, I think it all had to do with Maxwell Taylor's various missions. And of course, that's an interesting character too. the tragedies are still unfolding. I mean, my God, every time I learn something new in my research, I'm like, oh no, it's that too.
But
So
what about the issue of crimes? I'm not just talking about war crimes, you know, murdering civilians or something like that, but the crimes of a broad nature, such as drugs, the deliberate promotion of a whole mafia, a whole new mafia interconnected with government agencies. What tell us about that with regard to Southeast Asia and what you know about that.
wow. I think I have this. Here it is. This is something rare that I have. It's called Terror in Vietnam by Jay Malin, Mallin. And it was one of two books that were given to my dad by a guy, a couple of guys, he said, but one of them apparently was Barney Cochran. Barney Cochran was an Air Force officer that was running the secret Air Force in Laos during the early 60s during this time, at the time that Air America is starting to build up. And then of course, the whole drug trade that we know about now with Vang Pao in Laos, Kun Sa in Burma, and the whole corruption of Thailand and Saigon and Nguyen Ki and all of these corrupt people that are running this drug trade with the assistance of the CIA airline. This becomes, I mean, people at my dad's level knew this was going on. And so what really just astonished me was when I started talking to Doug Valentine. Now, as you know, Doug Valentine wrote the book called The Phoenix Program about the Vietnam War. And it was one of the next sources I turned to after I finished studying The Secret Team by Fletcher Prouty. Because he's criticizing what we're doing in Vietnam and showing that we are setting up these Phoenix programs in order to eliminate opposition to our idea of who the government should be by any means necessary, and putting dragnets out into the countryside and seducing people to become agents against their own families or their own
Yeah.
communities and villages. This Phoenix program is part of our legacy. Not only is it part of our legacy, I think it's very, very important that we start recognizing that one of the big important points that Doug Valentine makes in that book, the last sentence in his introduction to the book is this: what will America do when the Phoenix program comes home to roost?
All right, so these are assassination program, the Phoenix program,
Yeah.
it brought home. This has happened several times in American history. It's happened in the Philippines, where the murder of the rebels and the spying on them was brought home under Teddy Roosevelt, and this led to the beginnings of the wrong faction of military intelligence and internal police. And this has happened several times. But I want to get back to one thing that you talked about, our legacy in Southeast Asia, and I want to dwell on this for a minute so that we can confront the problem that people, conservatives or liberals, have an image in their mind of people in government, in the military, or in these special services that are on our side. And there's assumptions that people make about the orientation of the people that are doing the wildest of these adventures. And we say, well, we have to excuse them because they're standing up for our side against bad actors. the deepest problem here is that the philosophy, the background, the whole history of these cliques, the Dulles clique and people before them, is that they are not on our side. They don't share, if you want to put it this way, they don't share Western values at all. Their values have to do with command and control, but not anything like a self-government, not anything like the assumptions about a quiet and orderly life for people that are improving themselves in a free country. They don't have that's not in their mind at all. And I would like to go to something that you have in your book, and that is again to mention this Health Alteration Committee. A man named Sidney Gottlieb, who was hired by government agencies and then put into the CIA under Allen Dulles. Tell me about the Health Alteration Committee. What is that? I know that this is not just in your book. The Church Committee in Congress investigated and brought this same committee out and put it before the public. But tell me what you know about this and what's their orientation. What are they trying to do? What kind of operations did they do?
Well, I wish I could speak authoritatively about it, but it's all secret
You are the
stuff, of
authority
course.
because it's a personal issue with you, and
And
this is something that people have to understand. The personal is so crucial here. Go ahead.
well, then it's Richard Bissell. Richard Bissell, you know, the son of the tycoon, the head of the Hartford Fire Insurance Company, and other major things like Hartford Hospital, where, by the way, they were doing lobotomies as late as 1965. That kind of person that doesn't respect the humanity of other people
Exactly.
Is the incredible dirty secret of our American government for the past for my lifetime. They are there. These people are there pulling levers and asking questions. Who will rid me of this troublesome person? They are acting like they have the right to eliminate anybody they want to. And they proved that they could do it through things like Guatemala and Iran and Vietnam. And then they well, anyway, the Health Alteration Committee is something I ran across in my research. It probably does go back to the Church Committee, I imagine. But when I saw that, and I said, "Oh my God!" Of course, you know, they knew how to give my dad quick cancer. These are the experts at it.
He
These are the
died of
ones
cancer at an early age. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. And Richard Bissell is the guy that hired Sidney Gottlieb to do these things. Richard Bissell Jr.
To induce illness in people that they wish to either temporarily incapacitate or permanently dispose of.
I think I can give you a direct quote from my memory. Richard Bissell said that what he wanted was a way to dispose, to have people get eliminated without there being any way to trace where it came from.
Right.
And that is the reason why health becomes a military issue. So we can secretly get rid of people. I don't think it's going to be secret for long, because the idea that they could give somebody a weaponized cancer might have seemed out of bounds to think about in 1962, but as we're starting to learn more and uncovering things like the health, just the existence of such a thing as a government body with people like Bissell, and I think it was Posh on it, or I can't remember who else was on it, but it was one of those projects that existed under Allen Dulles, and then it continued afterwards when Dulles and them just set up their own shops.
People have too much awe and respect, even if they hate these guys, too much respect for them as great inventors and powerful men. This kind of thing of secret poisonings and disabling agents goes back thousands of years. And the Romans, the Venetians, other people did these things. This is no invention. This is simply the ability to seize control without being able to sustain any kind of an orderly regime or orderly country. This is contempt. It's contemptible, and this is where you have to view the clique within the government as criminal, in the sense that people have to assume, I would say, a hard attitude that what we're dealing with is crime, and that we're entitled to justice, and the justice will be served as soon as we can do it. And we're not talking, I don't care about the penalties to them, but the justice means breaking their power, breaking their hold, and making sure they never get back into control within our government. Tell me about your father's last years before he died in 1971.
Well, I think it's probably worth mentioning the episode a little in 1967, I think, which was the TDY book that Doug Valentine wrote about a mission to catch the CIA doing their drug deal with Vang Pao in the plains of Laos, the plain of jars in Laos. And so I referenced that book in my book, and I've interviewed Doug, and he's been kind enough to verify with his most certain assurance that the person described in that book with a pseudonym of Mr. Hammer was in fact my dad. And that shows that my dad was organizing an operation to expose the CIA's drug dealing. What
was the name of the book you said?
It's called TDY by Douglas Valentine. See, I got a copy here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. TDY by Doug Valentine, and it's a roman à clef. He tells it as nonfiction, but changes the names. And it's so amazing to have Doug support. My initial instinct was that my dad was really important in trying to stop this CIA blob of elite takeover of our government.
What was the plan to trap them? How you know anything about that, or
it's told in the book. It involves putting together a team of special forces people. I think maybe some of the Air Force, the Air Force special guys that they had, and a lot of the Montagnards, and they put together this a team, like a platoon of these guys that secretly went into Laos and snuck up and had to go through some firefights to get there, but got to the point where the drop was to happen, where the helicopter comes down with the CIA guys in it, and the deal is going on, and they've got video cameras as well as still cameras, and they're recording it. They're recording the evidence, and so they, as the book says, they got the evidence. They somehow got back home, but unfortunately, the whole thing had been observed at a higher level. And my comment about that is that we now know that the NSA and Henry Kissinger had comms that could just listen to anything all
So
the time.
this is
So
in 67, you said?
yeah, 67 or 68 in my memory, I'm not
Okay.
sure. But
Yeah.
it was interesting because it happened in a time that Doug pointed out to me that there was a little gap where there was no Saxon for a couple of months. And so that was my dad's opportunity to, to try to do something.
Perhaps he took off to Southeast Asia.
Well, he didn't go.
Oh, he didn't go. Okay, but
Oh, he wouldn't go. No,
he was
no.
involved with that. Yeah.
But to
On
send
the
a team in.
analysis and the sending of it, the organizing of it.
Yeah.
So as we know, in that period in 68, the murder of President Kennedy back in 63 was followed by the murders of our other two, the other two senior leaders of the United States of America, which is Robert Kennedy, who would have been president for sure, and Dr. Martin Luther King, who should have been president and represented the future of the country. He was fully committed to the welfare of the United States, not just a constituency in the Black community. You have to take care of the poorest. But his attitude towards the colonial sector, I'm talking about Martin Luther King, and his attitude towards the poor in the United States and the rest of the people here is the kind of attitude which is the whole founding mission of improvement in our country. So both Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy were then assassinated in 1968. Your father had 3 more years after that, 69, 70, 71. And what happened in those years?
Well, I'm in high school. I'll graduate from high school in Bishop McNamara High School in Forestville, Maryland, class of 1970. My next sister is still in high school. She's a class of 71. While this is going on, my dad is just hardly even present in our lives. He's at work all the time. When he comes home, he's just completely exhausted. Matter of fact, he had told my mother that he was going to, and this was maybe in 67 or 68, maybe it was when he was working on this project, that he was not going to be able to do stuff with us, and he was going to be at work, virtually all the time. And that's what happened. And we didn't see him much. But we loved him. But the last big project that I think he was involved in was the Sante raid. And if you're not familiar with I guess people don't, but here's the book that I learned the most about the Sante raid from. It's a book by Benjamin F. Schemer, Schemer. And like so many people that write these books, he died of some cancer-related thing not long after it was published. So I want to honor him and the work that he did, because
So what was that raid?
That was the Sante prison rescue mission, the only time that we penetrated deep into North Vietnam to attempt to rescue prisoners. And the story of it is a pretty amazing story. I have another little thing that is a memento from this. This is a Sante Raider patch. It says on it, this is a mushroom, and it's got some scent coming up out of it, and it says KITDFOHS, kept in the dark, fed only horseshit. That's what they were running, and that is pretty much the way a special op was run, was that everybody had to be kept in the dark until they pulled the trigger. And so these guys were all revved up to save American flyers that had been held in these torturous prison camps in North Vietnam for years. And that planning of that raid happened under Saxa. But my dad's name doesn't appear in the book. But my dad was the guy that was at the top of the pyramid that would have had to sign off on every part of this. And so as I read that book, I noticed things that were like, oh, that sounds like my dad's influence there and here and there. So I have, and in my book, I've put forward the idea that my dad probably was very senior in the process of trying to save those airmen. And of course, like most things that were tried to by our real patriotic military guys during that period, it was quashed. It was screwed up, and I think that once again we have Henry Kissinger's hand coming in and forcing it to fail by one thing that he did was he caused it to be postponed for a month, and during that month they got all kinds of evidence that the prisoners had already been moved.
Yeah.
But they sent the raiders in anyway, and the raiders did apparently kill a whole bunch of so-called enemy, whoever was there, and they all got away safely, and they all came home safe, and that I think that may be why my dad was given a special forces ring. I have one of their sapphire rings that was given to my dad by he said a couple of guys gave it to him, and then that he was not permitted to wear it in the Pentagon. Okay, so what does that tell you? That the people
Right.
in the Pentagon are afraid of the people that are doing this, that are giving my dad a special forces ring.
Yeah.
Anyway, it all just swirls into my head until I finally
This
had to
is
put it all together in a
Lyman
book.
Lemnitzer's version of the Defense Department. So your father died of suddenly or unexpectedly of cancer in 1971.
Yeah.
You just let's try to go to a conclusion here. You had your own work, and when did you start doing the work for this book, and what's the evolution of the book?
Well, I had a law practice for 30 years and very, very busy, and always had this in the back of my mind to research into it. And then so when I think it was about 2013, 2014 that I started really researching things. And as I was able to gradually get out of my law practice to wind it down, I started studying more and more and reaching out to other people, other researchers, to try to get clues as to what I should do next. And it just became my life's project to try to do what my dad was doing, and that is to keep the fight going to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Because I mean, if as somebody who studied history and political economy and all of these things in college, and the law, and has been a lover of our system my whole life, I see it's in grave danger right now. And so whatever I can do to help reveal the danger and persuade people that it's real, I want to do it. It's my father's story. If people understand and believe what my father went through in his short life and all of the incredible, I mean, you have to be gung-ho American in order to get on to MacArthur's flagship. And,
That's right.
I love, and my grandfather was a very patriotic guy. My whole family, we should uh, be celebrating America right now, but we're, like I often say, we're being pinned down like poor old Gulliver by the Lilliputians with all the little ropes over this
That's
arm
right.
and that finger and
By these little people with their power. So when was this
uh,
book? When was your book published?
it was published on the June 6th of 2021, the 50th anniversary of his passing.
Can you show the cover of the book again?
Sure. Yeah, this is a picture of my dad at about the age 20, 21, and He's standing on the Nashville with a smile on his face,
What's
looking very
McDuff?
satisfied. And McDuff is of McDuff. The name McDuff came from a conversation that I had with George Webb, who is mentioned in the little blurb in the back. George is a citizen journalist that I reached out to one day in about 2016 or 17, and we ended up getting together and sat down and had some coffees together and talked for about 5 hours. And I told him, I've got this amazing story about my dad, but I'm afraid to identify him because of the existing family members and the people that would know. And seriously, this is this is very dark, deep stuff. I mean, it could put me and my family in danger. So I talked about it with him for a while, and we ended up talking about Shakespeare, and then we got to McDuff, and of course, the McDuff story that is in our culture is that he cleans up the mess at the end of the play, where the rightful government has been subverted, and
the Scottish government. What's the play?
Macbeth.
Macbeth.
Yeah, the Scottish play, as they might call it.
That's right.
And so in Macbeth, there's a character named McDuff, and I think that's the reason that I call my dad McDuff, because I think his spirit lives on, and I think that I do what I can to help keep the spirit going.
Thank you, John O'Loughlin. You have a regular broadcast or podcast, and it's called McDuff Lives, right? Is that the name of it?
That's right.
That's right.
That's it.
And so people, how do they tune into that?
Well, I'm on Rumble. Rumble is my flagship. I gave up on YouTube. They gave me too many strikes, and I don't want to fool with getting censored. So Rumble is my home right now. The name of the channel is McDuff Lives, and it's all one word. So just go to McDuff Lives, all one word, on Rumble. You can also follow me on X under my moniker. There is Late Driver, Late Drive being the street I grew up on as a child, and also the name of a huge naval battle in which my dad participated.
John O'Loughlin, thank you so much for coming on with this interview for me, and I love the story, and you need to be a special advisor to a seriously American government as soon as we get one. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you so much, Tony. It's just an honor, and I really appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye now.